So we're going to start with what exactly is S3. So S3 is the storage solution from AWS. Okay, it is the network storage. Let us go and let us see how it looks like. So this is what S3 looks like. Okay, so you got some buckets over here. Let me go ahead and delete some buckets. I don't need all of them. Okay, so I'm not deleting this bucket for a reason. Anyway, now when you first time open up S3, you will not have any bucket over here. It will be blank. It will be completely empty. So you should start by creating a bucket. Now, what is a bucket first of all? A bucket is basically a container within which all your data is going to be stored. Whatever data you want to store, that is going to be stored within a bucket. Okay. So you'll create a bucket from here. It is asking for the name of the bucket. Just give it a name. Let's say, for example, my buck hyphen. And the way I do the naming convention is basically current time 0829 and the current date, which happens to be March 20. So 2003. Okay, so this is the way I name the buckets, and you can see there is a settings over here which talks about block all public access. Okay, so we shall talk about this later when we talk about bucket security. As of now, let us just give the name of the bucket and the region, then in which region I want the bucket to be set up, and click on create bucket. Now there is one rule about this bucket naming. Okay, the rule goes like that any bucket name has to be unique throughout the AWS platform. So I do not mean that the bucket name has to be unique within your account or within a region. I mean it has to be unique throughout the entire AWS platform. Okay. So if I am putting a bucket of this particular name in US East North Virginia, you cannot put this name of a bucket, or in fact anybody in the world cannot put this name of a bucket in any region of their choice. They cannot do it. It has to be unique. And now that you have a bucket, now we can start going inside the bucket and playing with it. So when you come inside the bucket, this is the screen that you get to see over here. Okay. So now what you have to do is that you have to start by uploading files or folders over here. So let us try to do that. So once you click on upload, this window comes up. Now over here, you can drag and drop files or folders. Okay. So let me do some drag and drop of files and folders. I'll go to my D drive. Let us say I have got a file with the name dog cat text. Let me upload this. Okay, you can see this 196 bytes, and this text file is uploaded over there. Okay, so now this text file that you have over here, so when you click on this window that comes up that shows the summary of it, basically overview, properties, permissions, you will understand these things. I'll talk about them. All right, so now you can see that this is your particular file that you have uploaded. If I again click on the file name, I will enter the object properties. This is the object related properties, permissions, and also your overview, that is the summary and all those things coming into picture. Let us read what all things are there. In the overview, first we find out who is the owner of this file. We find out that when this file was last modified, that was just 1 minute ago. We also find out there is a unique tag associated with each of the files. So this tag is, you don't need to worry about it. That is used by AWS for its own purposes. Then there comes a very big thing which is known as storage class. Now the storage class is a very big thing that you need to understand over here, right? It's a very required thing that you need to understand over here. So we'll talk about storage classes in detail. So standard storage class, always understand that standard is the default storage class. Whenever you upload a file, that goes into the standard storage class. The storage class have to got to do with the speed of operation. Basically, if you are in a high cost storage class, the speed is high. You can immediately retrieve data. If you want to go for a lower cost storage class, the speed will also be less. It will take a lot of time to get the data. Practical example can be, hard disk and SSD storage, right? So if you are going for a hard disk, it takes a lot of time to retrieve a data, but SSD storage is extremely fast. I'm not saying that some storage class is hard disk, some is SSD storage, What I'm trying to say is that it is similar kind of a comparison, that SSD costs you higher, right? So for the same size of a hard disk, SSD will cost you more than double. So basically, higher cost storage classes are faster servers. They do a very fast transaction of data, and a slower or lower cost storage class are slower data storage. That is basically the thing. We'll talk about storage classes in detail. There are different kinds of storage class, and they're different kind of access time. We'll come to that. Then it is talking about server side encryption, which is not being used over here. Ultimately, the size and the key. What is the key? The key is the relative path of a file within a bucket. I mean, I can prove you this. See, right now the key is telling dogcat.txt. If I create a new folder over here with the name, let's say my folder, I move this file into my folder. You can see when I say move, all the things are being shown. So now this file has got moved into that folder. So now if you see, the key has become the folder name slash the file name. So it is basically the relative path within the entire bucket. And then you are finding the last thing is your object URL. Now this object URL is basically, you can see, using the bucket name, it has created a HTTPS link. Okay. And after that, it is just keeping the key of this particular object. So this is how the URL is created. HTTPS bucket name dot s3 dot amazon aws.com slash the key of the file. So of course the space between dog and cat has been replaced with a plus over here because the space cannot go on the URL bar. So this one, if you click, you are supposed to see the content of this particular file. Even though if I click on it right now, you will see there is access denied message coming. We don't have a permission to access this particular file. So we'll see how we can get the permission. But however, so you can see that this URL is getting created. This URL has only information about your bucket name. I mean, if you create another bucket, everything will be same. Just the bucket name will change. My buck something. This part will change because the other part is you can see s3 amazon aws.com. So that is definitely not going to go through a change. Okay. So now you understand that why you required an unique bucket name throughout the entire AWS platform. Because if you don't have a unique bucket name, then this URL will be messed up completely. Okay, this URL does not have any information about the region, about the account number, nothing, just the bucket name. So if you and me have the same bucket name, then you're going to see that you and I, both our buckets are going to be appearing whenever you hit the URL. Now that is impossible, right? So it has to be unique bucket name, right? So this thing proves that. All right, so now let us talk about that how we can get this thing displayed over there, because when I clicked on this, it was not getting displayed. It was saying that we have got access denied. Now this, if you remember, when I created the bucket, there was a section that said block all public settings, which I told that we shall talk about it later. Let's not do it right now. So that is what is blocking your public access. We need to come back to our bucket and go to the permissions tab. We'll talk about properties, but let us now come to permissions tab. And here you have that particular thing, block all public access. You can see it is turned on. We want to turn it off. So you can see public access settings, it is telling this is updated successfully. So now let us come back to our element and let us try to see what is happening over there. Well, does it work? Not yet. Now that has got to do with this part, permissions. Come to permissions of the object. Okay. Now here you can see at the end there is a public access. So if you click over here, you'll get this window which says that do you want to give the read object? So if you want to, you have to click this particular thing. That access to the object, we are allowing the read object. So people can come and they can see what is there within the object. Right? You have another two permissions. One is read object permission and write object permission. If I talk about read object permission, that will simply mean that this particular object permissions, what all permissions this particular object has. Do you want public to be able to read that? I don't. Write object permission means do you want public to be able to change the object permission? Of course I don't. So I'll keep the read object over here. Now if I save this, okay, and this time I again come back over here and I try to open it up. So basically, you can get the object URL here also. Oh, it opened up. Okay, if I want to open it up in a new tab, I will see that the text is coming. Okay, this is a very odd, weird text. But however, what you can see is that the text is appearing over here. That is more important. So what has happened is that we have just allowed the read object. If I go and if I deny it once again, okay, switch it off, then you will find out that if I just click on refresh, you can see I've again got access denied, right? So now why I switched it off, I know that you already knew it, but why I did it, because I will show that this button also you can click instead, make public. If you do so, it will again start working. See, it is working once again. And what happens as the effect of clicking make public is that essentially it writes an ES over here. So the thing that you did manually the last time, you can just click on that particular element called make public and it will be made public. Let me quickly run you through the other options over here. The second one is adding the access for the object owner. That means if I am owning the object, this particular account owns the object, what all permissions I have. Now, of course, you can understand that I need to have all the permissions if I'm owning that. And you can see I have that. I can read the object, I can read the object permission, I can write the object permission, etc. etc. If I want to give another AWS account a permission to work on this particular object, I can click on add an account. I can put the canonical ID or the email address. Now, how do you find the canonical ID? Well, one straightforward way can be go to your S3 bucket and open up and add an app object and see that what is the canonical ID being reported over here. Send it to the other person. Let's say, for example, send it to me. I write it over here. I click you save, and I give you a permission of, let's say, read object. So now you can come and you can read the objects. That is simply giving permission to some other AWS account. An example can be, let's say, Google Drive, right? So you have a Gmail account, I have a Gmail account. I am creating a folder and I'm loading the videos over here for your, let's say, class. And what is happening? You are getting that particular class videos from there because your Gmail has been added over here for getting the data. So you can get the data from there, right? So that is the simple idea. All right. So this is basically, there is nothing more in permissions. Permissions is the smallest area, but anyway, of course, a very important area, right? So this is your permissions. Overview part is clear, I guess, and also I guess the permission part is clear. The last thing that is over there is select from is nothing. We'll talk about it later. But the last thing that we have got over here is properties. Okay. Now let's have a look into this particular thing. I was talking about storage class, right? So let us click on this and let us see. So you can see there are 5-6 different names written over there. Namely standard storage class where the particular file is right now over there. Then you will find out standard IA, standard infrequent access. I am just jumping over this. I'm not talking about this particular thing as of now. So standard IA, which stands for standard infrequent access. One zone IA, which stands for single availability zone infrequent access. Then you got Glacier. Glacier is a archival storage, means it compresses the files and it stores it. And then we have got Glacier Deep Archive. Okay. Reduced redundancy is a very new addition, extremely new addition, last 1 month or so. So as of now, don't worry about it. So we got Glacier Deep Archive. So let's understand that what these things are, right? So standard storage class, standard infrequent access, one zone infrequent access, Glacier, and then Glacier Deep Archive. What these particular things do? Let us try to understand that. So now standard is a typical storage class where you primarily store your data the very first time you are uploading it. What happens in a standard storage class? In a standard storage class, the first thing that happens is that access speed is very high. Access time is very low. I mean, they're the opposite things, right? If the speed is high, that means you need less time. If the speed is low, you need more time. So basically, access time is very low in standard frequent access. So you can see it is written that it is designed for frequently accessed data. That means the data that you need to access very much, you're going to keep that over there in the standard storage class. Okay. Standard infrequent access, the access time becomes a little higher, not very high, a little higher. So let us say if the standard storage class gives you an access time of, let's say, 10 milliseconds, your standard infrequent access is going to give you access time of let's say 12 milliseconds or 15 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, in that range. It is not very different, but it is that the cost is very low because it is for infrequently accessed data. Therefore, the speed is, it is on a slower speed server. Now, the slower speed server does not mean it is so slow that you cannot retrieve the data on time. No, you can pretty much do it. Probably it is faster than your hard disk, but it is still slower compared to standard frequent access. Then comes infrequent access. In the ones on infrequent access, what happens is that you will be finding out that it is more suitable for the data that you want that is not much critical. You can see in the description it is writing non-critical data. Why it is like that? Because you have to understand this point that in standard storage class as well as in the standard frequent infrequent access storage class, the first two that I talked about, these particular two storage classes are going to store your data across multiple availability zones. Means what? Means it is going to be creating redundancy of your data. So your data is stored there in, let's say, availability zone 1A. It can also be stored in 1B. So if by some chance if 1A goes down, it will be trying to get the data from 1B. So there is a redundancy, and that's this redundancy is basically helpful when you try to talk about disaster recovery and these kind of situations. But in case of single zone IA, it is single availability zone. There is not an option for going for disaster recovery in that way because it is not storing redundant copies of your data. So whatever you have, you have. Only one time you're uploading, you're getting it only one time. That's it. So that's your single zone IA. The access time is a little higher compared to standard infrequent access. Not much difference, but once again, the redundancy and the data, the way you are saving them, that is what is going to be go different over there in single zone IA. Then comes your Glacier. Now Glacier is basically when you're trying to store the data in an archival format. Now Glacier takes a lot of time to retrieve the data. I mean, it can take somewhere up to 6 hours of time. It can take somewhere up to 6 hours of time to retrieve the data. It is so much compressed and archived, right? So the data is becoming, compression is happening. When you compress something like heavy compression you're trying to do and archiving something, that also moving on to a very slower storage because you know that rarely going to need that, probably never. So that is going to be Glacier, that storage. And then at the end comes your Glacier Deep Archive. Glacier Deep Archive is basically the storage where you will find out that it is going to take huge amount of time for retrieving. Sometimes the retrieving even goes up to 24 hours of time. It is so big, so high amount of time it requires to retrieve the data. And Glacier Deep Archive is an extreme compressed and extremely difficult to pull out every single time if you want to. I mean that is like you never need this data, but you still cannot delete it. You just put it over there. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you an example about all these particular things. Let us assume if the police department of India was going on Amazon cloud, right? A little bit funny to think about it, but let us say the entire police department of India is going on to the Amazon cloud. So now, what do you think is the thing that you need every single point of time? Well, probably you need, for example, to write FIR. So every day, probably say 10, 15 people, 20 people, every single police station who is going to write down a GD, a general diary. So you can keep that thing in your standard storage class, your GD material over where you need to write and all those things, because that is very extremely high usage. Every day in every single police station, there are, let's say, 20 GDs. So there are 20 GDs in every single police station, and you can just keep on multiplying, right? So you'll find out it is even more than a huge number basically. And then you find out standard infrequent access. So probably you can keep the GDs that have come to you probably 7 days ago, because, or let's say, the I have lost my mobile phone and this kind of GDs, because probably you're not going to use them. Yeah, they are there, but you as a policeman do not go to find out others' mobile phones, right? So even though there is a general diary about it, you don't really, so you can move it into a standard infrequent access. Now, if it is a police station, you should not move it to single zone infrequent access, not at all. Because if you move it to single zone infrequent access, then there is a chance if the data center goes down, your data will be erased completely. So you should not go for single zone, but you can definitely go for standard infrequent access. You can go for Glacier for the FIRs and the GDs that have been already done from the Indian courts. In case that it went to court, it has already been done. So basically, you don't need it anymore. But you still, as a police department, you cannot delete things. So you're keeping it in Glacier storage. So example can be, let's say, some case that has happened in 1980s and that has got settled down. So you don't need those files anymore. But still you need to keep them. You can keep them in Glacier storage. And Glacier Deep Archive is like something else that has happened like 50 years ago. You absolutely do not need it. I mean, there is no circumstances under which you're going to need that. But just because you're a police department, you cannot delete it. If someone at all requires it, you can easily take 24 hours of time to get that. It is not going to be a hot topic at all. So you're going to get time to get that back. That is probably going to store in Glacier Deep Archive. Right, so these are the different storage classes that you have, and the access times are different. You understood that more you go from standard to bottom, that is to Glacier Deep Archive, you'll see that the access time is increasing. You need more time to get the particular thing, retrieval time. Also, at the same point of time, you will see that the cost is decreasing. The cost to store something in the standard storage class is much higher than to store something in, let's say, single zone IE or somewhere, right, or maybe Glacier. That is the case. The speed of operation decreases, the cost decreases. Therefore, the time of operation increases. That is a simple theory. Now, after storage class, you'll find out we're talking about encryption. Now, encryption is basically there are two ways of doing encryption. One is AES 256. AES 256 is a very powerful encryption service. You can use it, or you can use AWS KMS. KMS stands for Key Management Service. I guess you know this thing that when you talk about encryption, we're talking about pretty much a private and a public key pair, right? Think about bank lockers. When you go to a bank locker, what happens? You have a key with yourself. So every single locker owner will be having their individual keys, and the bank guy will be having a master key. So he has to put the master key in the master key hole, and you have to put your key in your key hole, and then only your locker can be opened. You cannot open up other people's locker because their locker has been, let's say, locked with some other private key, even the public key. So the banker's key, we're calling it a public key because it is with everybody, and this one is we are calling a private key because that is only with every individual customer, individual unique private keys. So one public key can have multiple private keys in unique, right? So you can create a public and private key pair, and you can just supply that particular key over here, right? So you can create. So already you will see that there are AWS S3. This key will be coming automatically. I mean, whenever you open up an account on AWS, you try to create buckets and all those things. You will see that this particular key is coming automatically. In case you want to create your own key, you can go to Amazon KMS, which stands for the Key Management Service. You can go there, and you can actually try to create your own key, and you will see that that particular thing will start appearing in the drop down. Okay, so you can go to the KMS console and you can create a key. It is as simple as that, right? Just write down a symmetric or an asymmetric. Now, typically, asymmetric key is much more secure. That is typically considered in that way. You can go for a symmetric key also. Create the key and just supply it over there. That's it. It is just a couple of next like that. Okay. You can see this step 4 is going to be important where you define the key usage permissions. KMS is a different topic altogether. Let's not get into that. But just understand that you can write down your keys over there and you can supply the particular key, and then ultimately you're going to see that this particular thing is working out as an encryption. Okay. We're not going to go into encryption. We can just leave it. There are two things that is pretty much funny. One is metadata, one is tags. Before coming to that, let me show you the object lock. So object lock simply means that you can lock the objects of your bucket. That means nobody can go and delete the objects of your bucket. Now, if you want to work on the object lock, you have to switch it on from the bucket level first, just like your public access. If you remember, we opened it up from the bucket level first, because if you are not opening up on the bucket level, you cannot really open it up on the object level immediately. First, in the bucket level, it has to be allowed. Now, honestly, for object lock, you can only enable object lock while creating a bucket. Even after the bucket is created, it is finished, you still cannot go and you still cannot switch on the object lock. You have to do it during creation of the bucket. However, so we didn't do it, so we can as of now understood the point, right? So object lock is used for only to block, or it's to prevent deletion of a particular object. Whichever object you are locking through object lock, that object will not be deleted. If in case you switch it on from the bucket level, you'll find out that by default every object is getting locked, so you cannot delete them. So coming back to this metadata and tags, what is metadata and what is tags? What is the difference between them? Because honestly, if I click on this one and I click on this one, you will see both of them are key value pairs. This is also key value pair. Metadata is a key value pair. Tag is a key value pair. So what is the difference between metadata and tags? Well, the metadata is talking about the intrinsic properties of this particular file. Means what? Means let's say this is a text file. So if you see, you can see the content type is text. This is written in English, let's say. So you can go for content language and you can write down that is US English. So EN-US. This is how you typically write it down. It is your choice, however. This is the typical way of writing. So you can see this is the content language. This is, you can see, if I click on add metadata, and you find out these options over here. Now these options over here are typically the options that you will be intrinsically fitting in. I mean, cache control, content disposition, content encoding, content type and content language you already give, expires, website redirect location. So a lot of things are there, but these are typically considered as the intrinsic properties of this particular file. Okay, this is I'm saving. And this one, your tags is going to be whatever you want to put, you can put. Here the keys are predefined in metadata. In tags, it is not like that. You can just put anything, whatever you want to put over here. Let's say, for example, I want to put for client. So this, I have got multiple clients and I'm storing their data over here. So I'm creating a new key called for client. I'm saying it is for client one, right? So there can be another element which is for client two. So it is your choice what kind of key value pairs you want to use over here. So in metadata, the keys are specific. You cannot really go beyond whatever you have over there, but in tags, you can write down your own keys, whatever keys you want, and you can use them your wish. I mean, in your wish. I mean, metadata, there is a meaning of every single key, so you cannot really change that. You can, but technically you can, but you should not. But here, it is like your wish what tags you want to put. Maybe other people will not even know about this tags who are using the same AWS account, let's say. So it is just like that, right? So it is for your understanding. That is the big difference between metadata and tags. But understand, using both these things, we can filter out elements. We can filter out all the text plain content types. We can filter out all the content language that is working in ENUS, English US. But in the tags also the same thing you can do. You can filter out all the clients that are for client, that is for client 2. So all the client 2 files will be reported back. You can do this thing. So that is typically your usage of this. So that is your object property. So no matter what kind of object you are uploading, that can be an MP3 song, that can be an MP4 video, that can be a text file, that can be a JSON data, that can be whatever it is. Every single thing is going to get this particular 5 properties, right? So it is fixed for every single kind of object. So we understood permissions in object level, we understood properties in object level. The last thing is select from. Now the select from is not much important for you as of now, because this is going to be basically when you have a lot of files over there, you can export them. You can see either in CSV or in JSON file format. You can export this particular thing, right? And you can see that it is asking which format you want to take and all those stuff. So this is basically exporting the data. It has got nothing to do with storing the data and managing the data. It is exporting the data. So this particular thing will be coming more into picture when you try to work with data analytics. So you can see it is trying to send you to Amazon Athena. Amazon Athena, let me tell you, is a data analytics tool. Amazon Athena, it falls under analytics. It is not something that we learned over here. We are not going to talk about analytics. So it is perfectly fine. You can ignore this particular tab. So properties and permissions are the things that you need to work on. So now after this, you will see, now that was the permission section and the property section for the particular element. Let me start with permissions, because you already know a little bit about permissions. Now the same thing, you can see that this kind of permissions is there in bucket level as well. One is your block public access, which you already talked about. The second one is the similar thing as you saw the object permission, right? So the similar thing, you can see there is a bucket owner that you can write anybody else's email ID and you can give them a permission to work on your bucket and all those things. You can give them a read object, write object. So there is one extra option that is coming into picture that is called write object. Now you can see, understand that it is typically it should be like this. I mean, in an object properties, you didn't have this write object, right? In the object properties, you didn't have this write objects, but in the bucket properties, you're finding there is an extra option called write objects. Now that is pretty much obvious, because in an object, how can you write another object? So that option will not make any sense over there. But here it makes, because in the bucket, you can put new objects. So you can write a new object of your own. That means what? That means you can upload files if you want to, or copy files from another bucket or whatever. You can do that. So for another AWS account, you can do that. You have the public access also. If I enable the public access from here, then the entire bucket will be publicly accessible. Okay. And the last one is S3 log delivery group. Now this is basically that whenever there is an access log going on in this particular server, S3 server, there is an access log going on. You can create a log delivery group from your user base. That is the IAM section. You can create one. And then what will happen? You can just send those logs to that particular log delivery group. So there will be a group of people, a group of users who can see those particular logs, right? These logs can go in your CloudWatch as well. There is something known as CloudWatch logs, right? So this can go inside your CloudWatch as well. So you can see that from there. So basically it is asking that the log delivery groups that is there, what all permissions you want to give. So typically In a usual scenario, you'll be giving them list objects permission. List objects basically means reading the objects that are over there. You typically give it because what happens is that you're telling that this particular log delivery group, whoever the people are there, they should be able to see the elements that are there in the bucket. Let's say there is a server access log and there is some kind of an error log or things like that. Now, if there is an error log, so where the error goes like this, someone wanted to see a particular file, but they couldn't do that. So in those kind of cases, you'll be requiring to have this particular list object permission so that this guy can come and this guy can check. In some cases, it is also beneficial to give them the read bucket permission. So what happens over there? You are telling that in case someone wanted to access some particular file, they found an error and you have the error log, you can of course try to see the permissions of that particular object and try to figure out whether that particular object is publicly accessible or not. Right? So there is a reason that you have this particular thing over there, S3 log delivery group. This was not there in the object level, but this is there in the bucket level. So that is more or less about the permission in the access control list. And there is something called bucket policy. Now this is hugely important. Bucket policy is the most important ones in the entire permission section. Okay. This bucket policy is typically written in a JSON format. So how do you write the bucket policy? You have to use the policy generator that is linked bottom over here. Now here you have to use this particular policy generator for creating a policy for your bucket. How? You have to go for saying that it is going to be an S3 bucket policy. Good, write it down. After that, the next thing is that you need to say that whether you want to allow certain actions or you're planning to deny certain actions. Let's say I want to deny certain actions. Okay. The principle is basically that where you want this particular thing to take effect, I'm writing the entire bucket. Star means entirely. The service you cannot change, it is fixed to Amazon AWS. I'm clicking on this, but nothing is happening because we have essentially told it is an S3 bucket policy. So there is no other service apart from S3 within S3 bucket policy that can accept S3 bucket policy. So you are stuck with this one. That's fine. Then comes the action. So what all things you want to deny? You have to write it down. So let us say I want to deny deleting of an object. So delete object. I want to deny that. Okay. I want to delete bucket as well. So let me first deny delete bucket. Delete object we shall add later. Delete bucket I want to deny. Then it is asking for the Amazon resource name, that is the ARN number for this bucket. So let us copy the ARN. Here it is. If you remember, we use the ARN in our CloudWatch also, right? When we are SNS topic, when we are trying to add it in a CloudWatch. So ARN is a unique identifier of all the elements in any bucket. Every single resource that any people are using over here in the entire world, they're going to have separate ARNs for everything. So there is space copied in between. I'm deleting that. And I can click on add statement. Once you do that, you have to click on generate policy. And this JSON will come up. You have to copy this. I'll explain you this one. However, you have to copy this and you have to come back over here. You have to paste it. That's how you do it. And you click on apply, save, and you can see it's pretty much done. So if there was any issue, you would have seen a red colored mark over here. But since you are not seeing it, you know that it is pretty much done. It is working. Now here, let me explain you that what is going on over here. The first thing is that it is giving it a policy ID. So that is fine. It can give you some ID. That's okay. A policy version, let that version be there. And the statement we added, let that be a statement ID. So in the statement, you're going to mention what all actions you're going to allow or deny and whatever you want to do this, what is the resource name and all those things. So right now it is telling that it wants to deny S3 delete bucket, this particular policy, within the entire bucket of this particular one, my buck 08292003. So in this entire bucket, it is going to deny the delete bucket operation. So let us see that. Saving it once again to make sure that we are cool. I'll come out of this bucket. I'll try to delete that. And see, it is telling the bucket is not empty. The bucket must be empty before it gets deleted. Okay, fine, cool. Let us make it empty also. Right? So it deleted some objects. It is telling that's fine, cool. Exit. So now, if I go inside the bucket, there is nothing. The folder and the file both has got deleted. But in the permissions, still you can see the permission is there. So let us try to delete it now. Fine. The first point is okay, that it is not empty. It cannot be deleted. Understood. Let us try to delete it once again. And this time you can see deleting bucket cannot be undone, bucket names are unique, etc., and all those things. Let me paste the name. Let me try to delete it. Let's go over there and let us see what happens. And see, insufficient permission to delete the bucket. Right? After your AWS admin has updated the IAM permission to allow S3 delete bucket, choose delete bucket. So basically, right now the permission is not there to delete a bucket. It is telling delete bucket fails. And that is only happening because of my bucket policy. Because you just now, before starting the session in the very beginning, I showed you already. I just selected a bucket and deleted it. There is no issue with that. In fact, that bucket is not even empty. But still, there is no issue with it. But here you can see that it is not working out. Let us upload back our file over there. Now this time, I want to play with some other things over here. See. Now see, there is only one particular action, right? S3 delete bucket. Now I want to add, let's say, another action over here. Two actions. So I have to make it look like an array. I'll press an enter. I'll take it over here. I'll make it look like an array. Okay. So now you got only one option over here. It will still work out. But now I want two options. Two things I want to deny. I also want to deny S3. Now I know these names. If you, in case you do not know, of course you will not be knowing it. So you should go here and you should find out the names from here. Okay. It has to be the exact same name basically. So along with delete bucket, let's say I want to prevent delete object. Now if I try to save this thing, I'm basically expecting that now my objects will also not be able to be deleted. I'm expecting that. But if I try to save this thing, I'll find out a problem. There'll be an error. See, you find out that action does not apply to any resource in the statement. Why? Because in the resource we are just mentioning the bucket. If you mention a bucket, only you can write down the bucket level policies. For object level policies, you need to mention which particular objects you're talking about. So you need to make an array once again because we need to mention two resources now. One will not be enough. And what is the other one? The other one is going to be, see, the other one is going to be the same thing but with a slash star. That means within the bucket. The principal is specifying that it has to be done everywhere. But this guy is telling within the bucket. This is the bucket and this is the within the bucket. Now that is important. Why that is important? Because if you just say bucket, then you're talking about the entire bucket as a whole. So you're talking about that what you want to do on the bucket. But when you say slash star, then you're telling within the bucket. So inside the bucket, what you want to do? Inside the bucket, I want to prevent delete object. This makes sense. So now if I save it, you will see that it will be done aramse without any issue. And here you go. Now that we have given this particular one, if I come back, you will see that I can no longer delete this object. See, I got an error which says access denied, deletion, right? It could not delete this particular object. So delete objects, this task was completed and the result was that access was denied. So this task was completed but the deletion could not take place because it is being prevented by the bucket policy. Let us try to add another thing in the bucket policy. Well, I think you notice that whenever I'm uploading a file, that particular file is definitely not accessible publicly. So let us say I want to make a policy that whenever I am uploading a file, I want it to be accessible publicly immediately. I don't want to wait for this particular thing to me go, because honestly, every single time you'll upload a file, you will find out this is a pain. I mean, every single file you're uploading, you have to go and have to make it public. That's just a painful thing to do. We don't want that. We want it to be automated. That automatically every file will be accessible publicly. How to do that? Come to your bucket policy and let us add a new policy. Now this statement was a denying statement. I need to add a statement that is an allowing statement because I want the public access to be allowed, right? I'll need an allowing statement. The denying statement will not work out. So let us go and let us create a new statement. Now see, I know these things, so I'm doing it directly. You may as well use the policy generator. I'm going to copy and paste the same statement. It has to be here basically. So within the statement array, it has to be there. Okay, you can see immediately it gives you this particular warning saying that hey, you have given public access. So it identifies that now your bucket has got a public access, right? So that is important. You can see it is important. So now here in this particular case, now if I try to open up this particular file or let's say refresh this, you will see that the content is getting loaded. So now no matter which file we are adding, whenever we upload, because see within this file if you come in the permissions, this is not turned on. There is no read object over here, right? So individually from the object level, we are not switching it on. It is not on over there. It is only getting turned on from the bucket level directly by using the bucket policy. This is how powerful this one is. Even though the permission is not given over there, still it is working out. So the permission is not given over there means what? That means this is denied over there, right? So this is absolutely denied. It is not allowed in the object level. But since we are editing in the bucket policy, and bucket policy can just do everything and anything and everything. So you are finding it is working out, right? Get object. So in this way, you can write down as many statements as you want. You can get them built from here, from your policy generator, or you can write by yourself. Now I write by myself typically because I am habituated with this thing. But of course, when the very first time you are doing it, you have to go to your policy generator and use the policy generator to do these things.